Good evening, and thank you for joining us for tonight's wealth management webinar. My name is Angel Espinosa from Valley Strong's Wealth Management and Retirement Department, and I'm joined this evening by Richard Ramos. He's a financial advisor here from the Wealth Management and Retirement Department. Before we begin, I'd like to cover some housekeeping items. We plan to answer a few questions from the audience. To submit a question, please click on the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. We will answer as many questions as we can live, and if you feel your question has not been answered through the presentation, please fill out the survey after the webinar and supply your contact information. Someone will reach out to you directly to answer your question. Some questions may be more appropriate to be discussed at an appointment. If this is the case, we will respond to you with Wealth Management's contact information and then dismiss your question. We have a lot of information to cover tonight, so I'm going to turn my video off now so we can focus on the presentation. I will begin by introducing our speaker. Our speaker will be Richard Ramos. He has been advising since 2008 and with Valley Strong since 2016. Richard earned a Bachelor of Science in Financial Planning from Liberty University and is a certified financial planner. Richard's niche of practice focuses on those nearing or in retirement. Richard has a passion for financial industry and thus continues to grow in education. Richard also enjoys spending time with his wife and children, along with the church community.
Thank you, Angel. I appreciate that. And I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening, for taking your time. Greatly appreciate it. Hopefully I can make it valuable for everyone here. But again, my name is Richard Ramos. I'm one of the financial advisors. There's a few of us here with Valley Strong Wealth Management. Our topic for discussion: what will your retirement look like? So this is kind of a mile-high overview of retirement planning. It's not going to be in-depth. Retirement planning is very dynamic and even can be complicated. So we can't get into the valleys, if you will, but we can surely touch on the surface and get you started on starting to prepare of how to the frame of mind and the numbers to consider with retirement. One thing's for sure is that we're all headed in the same direction to retirement. I like to kid with my clients is that if we don't arrive at retirement, it's because we're probably not on this planet anymore. So either way, it's gonna arrive. So best thing to do is to start preparing for it at whatever stage of life you're at. It's never too late to start that preparation. Okay, so we're going to cover today the changing nature of retirement. So retirement has it's changing terrain, if you will, depending on what stage in retirement. We're also going to talk about encouraging investors to visualize their ideal retirement. So more of a visual exercise. And we're going to talk about the roadblocks in retirement savings as well. We're also going to try to help investors estimate living expenses. So we'll get a little bit into the weeds with the numbers, not too in depth again, just because for the lack of time. And some of these exercises can be exhausting. So we want you to enjoy this webinar. So let's get started here. And again, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and type them in there, and we'll get those answered towards the end here. So what do you imagine for your retirement? So it's always good to start off any great idea with a vision, with that exercising that imagination. And retirement is a brilliant idea. So it's good to first go there. So what are we doing in retirement? Are we traveling throughout the world, traveling throughout California, maybe just traveling in Kern County? So, but what exactly do you imagine? Now, remember, with the retirement planning, it's an ongoing, it's a living document, like they say. It's not once you do it, you're cornered into that. So your ideas for retirement might be something today and something else down the road. So is it traveling? Do we want to do some hobbies? Do we want to spend some time on the golf, playing, taking the kids out to the grandkids out for their sporting events, or maybe just spending time with friends and family that you never were able to do because of busy life? maybe spending more time in church or with volunteering your services, or maybe even being bold and starting your own business, maybe an online business. So whatever it is, it starts with the vision. So we got to take ourselves there from there. Then you want to write this down. It's a good exercise. It might sound kind of corny, but writing down your vision it's a great exercise. And you're going to see that you're going to think of new things, and it's okay if you do it in ink. You can redo it and redo it and redo it. So I highly encourage you to do that. So a few questions that might want to address while you're writing this down is, what would make a perfect week, in retirement? What has to happen or not happen for it to be the ideal retirement in that week? And maybe then just go even further. What are you going to do in the different seasons? Now here in Bakersfield, we have 2 seasons pretty much, right? Hot and not hot. So it's easy for us to do for this exercise, but maybe your vision is going to other places where there is you will experience the 4 seasons. So maybe some starters, some primer there to things to journal, if you will. What day-to-day activities what's going to motivate you, keep you active? What do you plan to do as far as keeping yourself healthy? What kind of exercises? You want to take everything. You want to consider everything when you're writing this down. When you're having this visual, from staying healthy, from spending time with family, if that's what it is. So you want to cover as much ground as you can, because you don't want to spend the days on the lazy boy with the control in your hand, right? So I'm sure there'll be time for that as well, but we want to also start preparing or thinking of what's beyond the lazy boy. Okay, so let's go to the reality. So we had a good introduction on the imagination of getting the visuals going, but at some point we got to come down from there and start considering the realities of retirement. So what's going on there? So Medicare is going to be, or medical expenses is going to be a big part of the reality in retirement, right? Maybe not so much in the beginning, but at some point, the medical issues will creep up more and more in the expenses. So we want to start considering those as well as we're planning. So there's a study here by the National Academy of Science that says that they're reporting Americans will be in a nursing home at some point in their lives. That's more than half of Americans. That's a rehabilitation that's covering for 24/7. So that's quite a bit. More than half of Americans in the nursing home at some point. Hospitals are discharging and moving patients more quickly to nursing homes. Hospitals are getting overwhelmed and getting full. So nursing homes a lot of the stuff is just recovery. And nursing homes is where one can do that, but those are not covered by Medicare, at least not to the point of the level of the experience and care that we'd like. Dementia is becoming more prevalent here, and that's not cared for at hospitals. Those are done in rehabilitation centers. So we got to always consider healthcare with our planning as well. So we'll get a little bit more into that here shortly. But so Social Security, so that's going to be one of your streams of income. And right now, since 2007, 17% of that income is being spent on medical. So, and that's only going to rise. For 2030, we're looking at 24%. By 2050, a third of that's going to be spent on medical. So, what's happening there is inflation. And we're going to get a little bit into inflation here in the next slide, but inflation with medical and schooling, education seems to be accelerated as far as the growth of it, almost double or sometimes even 3 times more than inflation on just everyday uses. So you can see here that quite a bit of our budget is going to be spent on medical. So we want to definitely, again, consider that. So 65-year-old man has a 40% chance of living beyond age 85. So they're talking about longevity here. Also, if a husband and wife are both age 65, there's a 72% chance that one spouse will live beyond age 85. So when I'm doing financial planning with my clients, I plan all the way to age 95. You know, that's far out there, but I have clients that are in their 90s, and it's best to be conservative and over plan because we don't want to arrive at that point and without any funds, just because our vision was short-sighted, if you will. So we definitely want to plan beyond age 85, and if you don't, you know, what's going to happen is that you don't get there and you leave. You just leave more for your heirs. So we're living longer in retirement. Retirement is lasting longer. So a growing focus on health and fitness is important, just because we want to have that qualitative retirement experience. So availability of excellent Medicare is also it's more prevalent here in the United States. The ongoing innovations of scientific advancements also has a big influence on longevity. Today's retirees are likely to live 20 or more years after retiring. Yeah, I think it's more 25 to 30 years to be realistic. Now, maybe the quality of life is not there for the 25 to 30 years, but nevertheless, the life is there. So we have to plan for it in one way or another. So Medicare is going to be a big stress on retirement planning. So earlier I mentioned inflation. That's the reason for that rise of the budget, the Social Security income budget being consumed by medical, and that's inflation. Inflation is it's here. It's a reality, and we got to deal with it, and we got to factor it in our planning. Here's a few examples of what a home cost in 1992. The average home, $147,000. In 2018, $395,000, and by 2042, $828,000. Well, I think this year alone we got to those 2042 numbers. We got a lot closer because of the hyperinflation we're experiencing this year, and hopefully it is what the economists are saying, transitory. But it's a reality. Inflation in gas. It's 1992, not in California, but the nation's average was $1.11. 2018 and 2020, $2.29 to 2042 is $5.42. Well, we're pretty much there in California today. Gallon of milk, $2.81 to $3.28 and $6.92. So, and this is just the consumables of inflation. Again, some sectors have higher inflation and some are slower inflation. So these are just averages. I mentioned earlier that education and medical has the highest velocity in inflation, and some stuff, just to be fair, it actually goes down in price just because of innovation. For example, TV, flat screen. You can think of the flat screen TV. It's tremendously dropped in price, but for the most part, the consumables, the staples, medical, they keep on rising. Housing as well. So factoring in inflation into the planning along with medical is crucial. We definitely got to do that. So what are some of the things we can start doing and some of the roadblocks that are bound to happen? One thing with retirement planning is that the only guarantee is nothing turns out according to plan. That's just life, as they say. So, but that's okay. That's okay. That as long as we go in with that notion that it's not going to turn out perfect, and we have some ideas of how to combat those imperfections, and meeting with an advisor periodically is good, just to address what those unexpected events for retirement planning. So a 20-year-old, in order to get the best foot forward, the roadblocks they're looking at is paying for a wedding, student loans, rent, savings for a home. So they're dealing with that, but nevertheless, it's a great time to start planning for retirement. Like I said earlier, we're all heading in that direction, and the day will come. So what a 20-year can do is start making employer contributions a habit. Just make that just part of the process, almost looking at it as another tax deduction on there. Despite of all the other roadblocks on there, if they just get into that habit right away, it won't be such a burden or something to contend with in the future once they wake up and start thinking, well, I better start planning. They already have that going. But in the 30s, the roadblocks continue. Some might be making a down payment for a home, that monthly mortgage. Now it's life insurance. Now that there's kids perhaps involved, and other types of insurance, disability insurance, childcare, very expensive. So all that stuff is fighting for the budget. But nevertheless, retirement is still up ahead. So we got to continue to contribute to retirement plans. If a spouse takes time off to work, or maybe decides to be what they call a domestic engineer, homemaker, an IRA, the spouse can open an IRA as well. So that's a great idea with whatever amount is available. But again, making that a habit as well, because retirement planning is just not for one half of the matrimony; it's for both. So we want to have as much as we can to just be in a better place. We get to the age of 40, and we got more roadblocks. College, saving for college, adoption, fertility treatment, healthcare costs, family vacations. Now the kids have grown up and they want to go out to Disney World. Lessons for activities for the children, piano classes, travel ball. We got to keep them busy. Got to keep them off that screen time, right? And so that's going to eat away at the budget as well. And then parents as well. We got to help them out perhaps. So those are some of the roadblocks. But nevertheless, we want to save for retirement. And now that we're in our 40s, we want to, if we did not start in our 20s, we didn't get that momentum going early, then we definitely want to take advantage of maximizing the 401ks and the IRAs. If you have your own business, if you decided to go on your own, then getting with an advisor, with your tax professional, to see if a simple or a SEP IRA is a good fit, or what type of a self-employed plan is best. But we definitely want to do that is put some money aside for retirement. Why? Because Social Security is not going to be enough. We spoke about earlier about the medical expenses and inflation that's going to be there. Oh, look at this. There's more roadblocks here in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They don't stop. That's what planning is. That's what I said. It's always it has to be revamped or redone or rebrushed or updated. In the 50s, college is expenses, wedding for paying for the kids, helping them out with their wedding expenses, support for parents, or even siblings, other siblings that are not well off. And then, the unforeseen economic recession that took its toll on your plans, on your savings, on the business, a self-employed business. So just roadblocks that in time's running out at this point, right, in the 50s. But in the 50s, you enter the space of what they call the catch-up contribution with both the 401k and the IRAs. What that means is that because of your age, you're allowed to contribute an additional amount to the 401ks and the IRAs. And hopefully we can take advantage of this, especially if that catch-up needs to be done, because we didn't get a good start on that. So this can tremendously improve retirement. So if we take advantage of that, 60s comes around, that's it. The hour's up right here coming shortly. So if we decide to retire in our 60s, well, no more income there. And your employer health benefits comes to an end as well. So I think many of us might know that we can retire, we can collect on Social Security as early as 62. But the problem with that is that Medicare doesn't start to age 65. And without employer health insurance, there's a gap there. And that gap has to be fulfilled by you. And that's expensive. Medical insurance is expensive. So again, if that's the vision, if the vision is retiring at 62 or before 65, then we got to consider that. We got to consider that the gap of medical insurance has to be funded by your savings for a few years. And we've seen earlier how the increases of those medical expenses and insurance. So you definitely want to seek professional advice from an advisor before you start collecting Social Security, because some of those choices cannot be undone, or they're very limited if they're undone, or if they are allowed, they just don't look as robust as if they were never done. So that choice of when to collect Social Security, there's a lot of information out there. It's probably over information out there on the World Wide Web. A lot of it is noise. Some of it is just false information, and some of it does not pertain to your particular situation or your vision that we spoke about earlier. So this is where getting together with a financial advisor, a professional, will help you bring out some ideas or maybe some roadblocks that you're not realizing. And before we pull the lever on that Social Security collection, because retirement doesn't necessarily mean you're collecting the Social Security right away. It's possible, it's strategically possible that you retire at 62, but funding it through your own savings and not quite Social Security, if it makes sense. So that's where the financial advisor will help you come to that conclusion. Then we get to our 70s and beyond. Okay, healthcare costs start creeping up now. Inability to work. So maybe we're working all the way to age 70, but at this point, we're slowing down quite a bit, and we might have the desire and the urge to work, but are we going to find employment is a different story. So we got to start thinking of the expenses such as nursing homes and the concerns of outliving savings. Okay, so if you do continue to work, again, you seek out advice from a professional, financial advisor, just to see how that's affecting your overall situation with Social Security. So good, get some advice for estate planning as well. Definitely, but I'm going to say estate planning should probably be done in retirement, not wait to this point. but definitely by this point. And 529 accounts right here, we can see it's the slide is suggesting considering 529. Now, 529 accounts are education accounts for youth. So what the slide is trying to communicate here is that now at this point, we're in the preservation phase of your savings, and also the distribution to heirs. And the 529 is a good way for how to pass some money down to grandkids on that. Some of these thoughts are coming in at this point here of how much am I going to leave for my heirs? How much do I care to leave? Is it for my children or my grandchildren? And how does that look like? So the 529 topic comes in earlier, the age, to 40 or whenever you start having kids, but it also pops up again in late retirement, just for passing over some of that legacy. And there's a great strategy for that. But I'm going to take a little bit of water though, because I said quite a bit, and maybe let you catch your breath as well. Okay, so moving right along here. Where will your retirement income come from? Okay, so Social Security benefits, we spoke about that earlier. Employer-provided retirement plans, and your personal savings. That's pretty much the three-legged stool where income is going to be derived from. And we gotta replace income from those three sources, and hopefully we have all those three still. So and then the expenses we want to think about is your daily living expenses, your long-term care expenses, your medical cost, and the college tuition if we are indeed helping out the family with that. Okay, so Social Security benefits are not enough. So that's one of the three-legged stools there that I mentioned earlier of that's good income's going to derive from, but it's just not enough. So the current average monthly Social Security benefit, $1,200. This slide's a little outdated. It's not $1,200. It's more like $1,500 now, because of those cost of living increases. The nice thing about Social Security income is that it does increase with cost of living on that. So that is factored in there. So that leg of the three-legged stool is covered on that. So, but the other ones we got as far as the employer plans and your own savings, we gotta factor the inflation in there, because it's not going to happen automatically like the Social Security does. But on the other hand, as Social Security income is increasing, so is the Medicare expense cost as well, and the cost. So this might decline, right? We all hear the stories about Social Security. Is it going to be around? It's underfunded. So for those in retirement currently or within a few years, I'm not concerned about Social Security being available, but for those younger, it might look different as far as when you qualify for Social Security income and how much on that. There's just we're not. The human race, especially in the United States, is not populating, so there's not the taxpayers needed to fund the Social Security is not as robust as needed, and plus also with expenses being used in other areas, it's also leaving the Social Security fund anemic. So it's for starters, Social Security is not enough. And then second is we're not sure how it's going to look like in the future. So we definitely want to consider that as we're planning. So Social Security, 401ks and IRAs. 401ks are a lot more prevalent now. it seems to be the most common of employer-provided plan. At one point, it was a pension. And for those who did not have access to a pension, an IRA, individual retirement account, was there for those. So if you can see here on the chart, back in the early 80s, 62% of savers were saving in an IRA, as opposed to a 401k. It was a new novel plan back in the 80s. So only 12%, but more and more employers have opted to go with the 401k and ditch the pensions. So now 73 of retirement plans being funded are 70% are being funded with 401ks, taking over the IRA spot. So many employers offer the 401k, which is great. And hopefully more of the employers keep continuing to offer that. So we got to take advantage of those, because again, that's the second leg of the three-legged retirement stool to sit on. Okay, so we spoke about Social Security, and some of that, how it's going to look in the future, is really out of our control on that. But with the 401k, that's more in your control. So we definitely want to address that and give it its the time that it needs by starting as early as possible on that. Okay, so planning for the unexpected. You might think you're right on target with your retirement savings plan. So again, you might be right on target. That might be the case. But like I mentioned earlier, the only guarantees with planning is that it's not going to turn out according to plan. So there's going to be unexpected events. Taking care of elderly parents that might take up some of your budget that you had planned for retirement. Children's education might cost more than what you anticipated. So if the unexpected happens, it's gonna throw a wrench in the wheel here. So a well-constructed retirement plan takes this in consideration. Takes in consideration what to do if the unexpected arrives. And the plan is just not a once set and done. It's more of revising it so those tweaks can be had to respond to those unexpected events and hopefully get your retirement back on track the way it was originally envisioned. And sometimes the vision has to be changed because of these unexpected. But visiting the plan, visiting with your advisor periodically, I suggest at least once a year. It's a good idea just to take the temperature on the plan and on things, and look out for unexpected events that might be on the horizon that the advisor might be able to shine light on. Okay. Oh, I got a little ahead of myself there. Okay, so how much will you need to maintain your standard of living? Now we're going to get a little bit into the weeds here as far as the numbers here. So you want to start off by taking an assessment of your total financial picture. This means taking into account all your assets, your 401ks, your pensions, your savings, your spouse's plans as well, and projected Social Security income. All we can do is go with what we do know. And plan around that. And then with the idea, with the openness that planning might have to, like I mentioned earlier, have to shift or be redone. So plan around with Social Security, the projected Social Security income. A financial advisor can help you with that. Can help you with gathering, tallying up all your assets, and also with pension projections and with Social Security projections as well. And you also want to look at a risk. What risks are out there as far with economic risk, a retirement decision risk, inflation, risk of inflation, and we want to determine appropriate goals to address the risk and inflation as well. So this is where meeting with the advisor can bring some value there. Okay, so once we go from there, we want to look at how much do we need to replace as far as income. So you're retired, but the expenses keep coming, right? We still have the utilities, we still have discretionary expenses, we still have maintenance. So a good place to start off with. Typically the younger one is, the more this rule of thumb that I'm going to elaborate, unpack here makes more sense, is just replacing 80% of current income. You know, just for the sake of round numbers, an income of 100,000, we need to replace at retirement 80,000. Now that's on the conservative side. Really, what through my years of advising and planning, I found that 70% is really more of the reality. But planning for 80% is just over planning, which is on the conservative side on that, and we could always adjust that. And again, the reason I mention this rule of thumb makes more sense for younger people is because it's hard. It's hard to determine what the expenses are going to be in retirement when you're 20, 25 years away from that. So just using this a rule of thumb, 70, 80% is a good place to start. And as you're getting closer to that retirement age, we could dial in the details and the numbers. So why is it that replacing 70 to 80% is a good rule of thumb? Well, you know, you're no longer paying payroll taxes and having those payroll deductions of 401k and other insurances coming out of your payroll. And also you don't have the expenses of the wear and tear of going to work and clothing for work and gas to work and eating out. So enough, 70 to 80% is will maintain the lifestyle rule of thumb again that you're accustomed to. So that's a good way to start off to as far as backing into how much income am I going to need here. But if we want to dial that in a little further, if we're just close to retirement, it's a good idea to start off with that 70 to 80%, and then let's write that number down, jot that down, and then start tallying up all your fixed household expenses. Your utilities, water and power, cell phone, cable, Netflix. Whatever you need to sustain a happy, comfortable life at home, if those are the fixed expenses, pretty much if you're going to spend the rest of your life at home, what are those expenses? How does that look like? The gas to the supermarket, for all the necessities. So we got to tally those up, what you have now, what you're spending now, and also discretionary. How often are you going out to eat? Or going out to the movie theaters, going out on vacations. So you want to consider all this stuff, and then make the adjustments that we think are going to be needed for retirement. Maybe some of these expenses are not going to be needed in retirement. Maybe there's some expenses that you have now that are part of your fixed. But for retirement, your vision is, no, I'm not going to need that. I'm not going to watch all the TV I'm going to need. I'm not going to subscribe to all these memberships that I have. So we make those adjustments. And now, so we tally that up, and then we could compare that to that number we jotted down earlier, that 70 to 80% of your current income. Seeing if there's a rhyme there, if it's harmonizing there, that way you could have a good idea of if you're on track there. So that's a good exercise to do. So once you do that, and again, I'm really simplifying this. This is where an advisor, you and an advisor can roll up your sleeves and really get into the weeds as far as the expenses and what do you foresee and not foresee as far as expenses in the future. But that's a pretty much a mile high view of that budgeting, if you will. So, okay, so once we got that, we got we got to review your financial situation. This is tallying up all your current assets, your current liabilities, right? Your balance sheet, in other words, the assets on the left, the liabilities on the right. And then we got to, subtract the liabilities from your assets. And what's your net worth on that? So this will give you a good idea of how much you have for retirement. Now, some people consider their personal home, and some people don't want to consider their personal home on this exercise because really the personal home is not an investment. Just because I don't see it as an investment, just because of the expense that one puts into a personal home, and with no cash flow from that, right? And we're personalizing it, we're maintaining, we keep it up because we want to our standards. But if the idea is that you're going to downsize, then we want to consider that. If the idea is that if you're just open to selling it, if that's part of the plan, then we consider that part of the overall net worth on that. So we can, and sometimes with my clients, I'll run both. I'll run a balance sheet with the personal home and one without it, just so we can see how that looks like. Okay, so how much do you need to save before your nest egg is large enough? Okay, so to generate earnings comparable to your estimated retirement needs, what we want to consider is your annual income, what your current net assets generate. So you have this income that you have. Are we going to be able to replace that 70-80% with your current assets? How does that look like? We have Social Security is going to be a part of that. That's one of the legs that's going to work on replacing that your 70-80%. If you have a pension, if you're one of the fortunates to have a pension, well, that's the another leg of the stool. But if you don't, what's the 401k balance with all the IRAs and all the savings? So so that's pretty much going to tally up everything. So what you have from Social Security that's a fixed income, but with your savings, including Social Security, including 401k, we got to get creative and generate income from that, and we got to make it last as well, right? Remember, I said earlier that we're planning here to age 95. That's at least age 90. I strongly recommend. So we have a gap here, right? We might have a gap. So we want to replace 70-80% of your income. We decided that that's a good number. We tallied up some numbers, and it looks pretty close to that 70-80%. So we're running with it, and Social Security is a part of it. And then we got to make up for the gap with savings, and we got to make that savings last for the 20, 25, 30 years in retirement on that. And plus, we got to factor in inflation, meaning you're taking your distributions are increasing from your savings just to keep up with inflation on that. So that's part of what we got to consider when we're planning on this. So we got to back into this. How much do we need? How much do we need to generate, to fill in this gap to replace your 70%? And this is where your financial advisor will help you out with those numbers, backing into that. Just maybe take a good stress test to see with different unforeseen events as well, if you are on track to meeting that with that. And if you're not on track, what do we need to do to get on track to amassing that critical mass to accumulate to derive income for those 30 years in retirement to replace that 70%. So, okay. The next steps, visualize your retirement. Again, I mentioned we gotta envision a rewarding and healthy and responsible lifestyle. So when we're doing this exercise of this visual, we got part of that is how are we going to stay healthy, with mind and body? What are we going to do to stay healthy with that? Imagine what you would like to do during each season, 2 seasons in Bakersfield of your ideal retirement year. Visualize a day-to-day style of living that will motivate your mind, maintain your health, and build relationships with your community. So you want to keep this in mind. You want to stay healthy, and you just got to keep that that community participation going on that as well, because you no longer have the community of at work that you will at work on that. So you consider the realities. Again, we mentioned healthcare is going to be a big cost, and it's rising. We're living longer. Retirement lasts longer. We got inflation as a headwind. So just working against us on that. So those are some of the things to look out for. Again, there's more. There's more to read. But these are some of the main ones that headwinds that we got to look out for in retirement. Okay, so start investing early, as early as possible. For you youngsters out there, investing a 25-year-old, 40 years of investing by the age of age 65, starting off with $5,000 and a moderate portfolio growing at 7%. We're gonna amass over $1 million, as opposed to Bob, who waited 10 years later at age 35. Well, he's got half of that, a little less than half of that, just because of the 10-year difference. Now, most Americans are saving in their 40s. So that leaves, this Susan here, 20 years to age 65. So 20 years, she was only able to amass $241,000. That's a huge spread from Tom there at over 1 mil on that. So this is a good depiction of how time is more critical than the investment allocation on that. Time is the biggest benefit one can give their portfolio on that. The second one is the amount they're saving. So for example, Susan, Tom's contributing $5,000 a year to amass that 1.1 mil, but Susan, if she wants that 1.1 mil, 5,000 is not going to cut it. That's only a year. That's only going to get her to 241,000. She's going to have to run the numbers with the advisor to see how much more does she need to save a year, and perhaps that's not within her budget. Perhaps retirement is more like age 70 for Susan, just because that's not saving 10,000 is not in her budget. So we got to look at the dials that one has for that influences retirement. Which one is time? Tom's got time on his side. The other is how much you're saving, and the other is how much risk. Tom could start taking less risk as he gets older because he's in that situation. Susan's not going to be able to take the foot off the pedal because she's got dollars to make up for. So we spoke about time, amount of saving, risk, and how long do we plan to live in retirement? In other words, when do we want to retire? Those are the 4 knobs, if you will, that we could control to manipulate retirement. And for Susan here, she might have to work longer, save a little bit more, continue taking the risk, and maybe even settle for less income than Tom is because of that. So time is very critical to get a good start on that. Okay, so bridge the income gap. One moment here. Okay. Increase your annual saving rate and if possible, contribute to a tax advantage retirement account. Okay, that's taxes it's a huge benefit. We definitely want to give attention to what we could control and taking advantage of tax strategies is one thing we could control. Maintaining a diversified portfolio is another thing we could control. And staying disciplined and staying consistent on the planning is something else we can control. The discipline as far as how much we're saving and not taking money out before needed, that's another thing we can do. We save into these 401ks, which are pretty much invested for the most part in the security markets, and we do the best we can to get the best out of those experiences. But to a certain extent, it's out of our control, those securities. But what we could control again is the tax strategies, our discipline, our diversification, and sticking to the plan. We definitely want to do that. So we want to save in those tax advantage plans, either the traditional plans or the Roth plans, and the advisor will help you out with which ones are better off for your current situation, because that might change from year to year. So you want to, if possible, phase in your retirement. That's a great way to do this, by going part-time or maybe consulting. That way you still have some income. So consider that, maybe even working a few days a week. Now with Uber and all these other platforms with athletes that become more prevalent as the normal part of everyday society, I think those kind of opportunities are going to be more and more available on that. And also give you, by phasing into retirement, and give you a good idea of what retirement looks like. Sometimes some of the clients have discovered that, hey, I don't like this retirement stuff. I'm spending 3 days a week at home doing nothing, and I think I'm just going to go back to work. So sometimes that's good. That exercise of phasing into it really helps out for those epiphanies. So again, we want to consider all your assets. Do we have enough? If not, what do we need to do to get us to that point of accumulating the assets we need to derive income from those assets in retirement? Okay. Again, keep going back to your advisor can help you out with that. Okay. So a financial professional, a trusted financial professional works with you to identify your goals, needs, and aspirations, and help you choose and implement financial strategies. I've been harping on this, throughout this webinar here. So there's a lot of strategies out there. They're not all for you. I'm going to say the majority of them are not for you, but one of them or two of them are. So we need to get to that point, and they might be for you at this point, at this phase in life, but they might not be in a different phase on that. So considering your risk tolerance and time horizon and all the other dynamics of life, an advisor can help you out with carefully considering the goals for your retirement, to visualize how you would like your retirement lifestyle to be. So these are good exercises to go with an advisor, considering the realities. So moving from the visual to the actual hard numbers of and how that's going to look like, and then estimating the gap, with different exercises. What's the gap look like, and how are we going to fill in that gap on that? So putting some meat around the ideas here, around the vision here. And also we gotta be an advisor will help you be proactive and taking it with nudges of taking the necessary steps and to be consistent and not to waver off because of the noise from the media and the neighbors. Help you rein in on your personal vision. So having a professional advisor is very beneficial. So, recommend to start as soon as possible. Definitely by, within your 40s and 50s, working with someone who's there to provide you guidance and with the process here. I said quite a bit, and I'm trying to keep the webinar under an hour. So I did ram through it, and I apologize for that because there's a lot of content in here, and I do want to leave some a little bit of time for any questions and answers. But I also want to mention that if we don't get to all your questions and answers, you can always reach out to one of the advisors here. There's at 833-7730, or there's a online website there that you can ask questions through the net as well, or even schedule an appointment through the net. So if we don't get to your particular question, or you just don't feel like exposing it here in this webinar, please don't hesitate to give us a call, or just reach out with an appointment, better yet, if it suits you. But I'm going to hand this back to Angel. Angel, do we have any inquiries out there, any questions that I can help with?
Hi, Richard. Yeah, we have quite a few questions. Great presentation, by the way, very informative. So the first one, the question is, they're asking, do you recommend postponing Social Security to age 70?
For the classic answer to that is yes. But again, it really depends on the individual. What's the individual's health situation? What's the individual's family's health history? Is there a spouse involved? What's the current income? So it really depends. Now, the financial advisor classic answer is yes, postpone it. But I'm a realist, and we need to be a realist, and so we got to really run the numbers and explore the overall picture before we get a definitive answer on that. Hopefully that was of help. I know that's kind of a wishy-washy answer there, but if you can't postpone it, postpone it. If you're not too sure, it's best to meet with an advisor.
All righty, Richard, let me go ahead and pull up the second question that came in. Would you recommend investing in stocks as a way to save for retirement?
Definitely, equities and fixed income, with stocks and bonds, are a great way to save for retirement. It's one of the most common ways. The most common investments out there are stocks and bonds, real estate, and cash. And pretty much those. There's others. We can invest in commodities, gold, and collectibles, but the main ones, the ones that we have most, I shouldn't say control, but the ones that we can use and hedge and really construct a portfolio to minimize uncertainty is through stocks and bonds on that. So yeah, depending on where one is in their trajectory as far as time horizon, it depends how much stocks and what type of stock, but more than likely stocks is going to be a part of the portfolio at, in any phase, in most phases of retirement, more than likely. So in short, yes, but just how much and which ones, it's just going to depend on other factors.
All right, thank you, Richard. The next question is going to be, are services free to Valley Strong clients or members?
That's one of the added concessions that members have, is they have access to a financial advisor, financial planner, like myself. So consultations, questions are, yes, they're available at no cost. Now, once the relationship is developed and there's planning going on and there's advising, once we start getting more in depth, then there are different forms of costs, and those it's not as simple as a certain numbers. It depends on the situation, but as far as getting information, and as far as having an introductory appointment, and as far as just getting to see if we're a good fit, because maybe we're not a good fit for where you're at the moment. And maybe all you have is a couple of questions that really doesn't entail in-depth planning on that. So I would strongly suggest don't let the thought of cost get in the way of reaching out to an advisor here on that. I think the cost is only an issue where there's a lack of value there, but I think there's a lot of value we can add to help you out with these endeavors.
Okay, next question. Can we have an IRA at work and also have a personal Roth?
Yes, you can. You can have an employer sponsored retirement plan, and you could still have outside of that a personal IRA or a Roth IRA. But what we do got to watch out for is how much you can contribute to those IRAs. If you already have an employer plan, it might affect how much you can contribute or how much tax benefit you'll get on that. So you can definitely have it, but then the question is am I still getting all the tax advantage that others are able to have? So it just depends on how much is being saved at work and what the household income is. It just depends on some overall other numbers to see if it makes sense or not. You could have it though. It's just, does it make sense? That's where the advisor will you guys can decipher that.
Okay, Richard. So this next question, they want to know, for out of the 4 types of investments, which one can you withdraw from first? So the first one is the regular 403B, the Roth 403B, from a Roth IRA, or from a regular mutual fund. Out of those 4, which ones are they able to withdraw from first?
Well, I'm gonna assume that the person is of age now. They're over the 59 and a half. And if that criteria is met, then you can withdraw from any of the plans. But I think the follow-up question is, which one is best to draw first as far as for tax advantages? Again, remember earlier I mentioned that we definitely want to give the attention on the things we can control, which is tax strategies. So as far as which one's better to withdraw first, so a Roth or a traditional or a 403B or just a regular, it's gonna be a compoundment. What I mean by that is the advisor is gonna help you assess your current income status, and then we want to withdraw from the account that is not going to push one into a different income bracket, if you will. Because remember, with withdrawing from 403Bs or 401Ks or IRAs, those withdrawals, those distributions are considered income. So that might magnify the tax burden but, or it might not. We just got to see, we got to assess where one is, because what we want to do is just take out first from those retirement accounts that, but only to the point where it keeps you on that minimal tax bracket. And if the person still needs additional income, then we can look at the Roth and the regular investment accounts. And if we're looking at the regular investment accounts, some of those holdings are considered long-term capital gains, which are more favorable to taxes, and some of them are considered income. So it's very dynamic. This is, again, where an advisor can really bring value in to strategize on things we can't control. And so that's why the question, the answer is not, as simple as I would like it to be. But you got a good idea of what's going on there. So it just might be that you're taking a little from the regular account, a little from a Roth, or a little from the retirement account. It just might be that. So there has to be a more in-depth analysis of household income.
All right. Next question. What is Valley Strong's relationship with Legg Mason?
A great question. That's a great question. You've noticed the Legg Mason little monogram there. Legg Mason is a money manager. So there's no relationship as far as ownership or anything of that nature. Legg Mason provided the slides for us. We clear all the investments through a financial bank, an investment bank named LPL Financial. That's the investment bank we clear everything through on that. And LPL Financial is I like to describe it as a supermarket of different investments that us advisors have access to. We got membership, like one would have membership to Costco to shop there for our clients, right? And Legg Mason is just one of the fund managers, money managers in that in the LPL investment broker, if you will, a superstore that's there. So, and there's thousands of them. So I'm not promoting Legg Mason. I'm not advocating to use Legg Mason. They're not a bad company, don't get me wrong. It happens to be that they provided the slide. So we have to display that. They're the authors of the slide. So other than that, there really isn't any kind of a relationship. Hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you, Richard. Looks like for the time being, those are all the questions we have. If anyone else still has any more questions, we still have our email on there and our phone number on there. Feel free to reach out. Thank you again for joining us this evening. We hope you enjoyed the content and that you leave feeling knowledgeable about wealth management. After we end this meeting, you will be presented with a link to take a short survey regarding today's webinar. This is where you can also ask additional questions if you feel your question was not answered in this presentation. Just be sure to include your contact information so someone can reach out to you. On behalf of Richard Ramos and Valley Strong Credit Union, thank you and have a great night.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.